From boy to girl. I never thought a simple Thursday evening could change everything about my life. My name is Alex, a 22-year-old software developer, living in a small, slightly cluttered apartment in downtown Chicago. On the surface, my life looked ordinary. Long hours coding for a tech company, minimal social life, and a steady relationship with my girlfriend, Emma. But beneath the mundane routine, I had a secret, one I never dared to share with anyone. It all started during my college years when I first experimented with crossdressing. It wasn't about being someone else. It was about feeling something I couldn't describe in my daily life. Wearing feminine clothes, applying makeup, even slipping into heels, gave me a strange mix of excitement, confidence, and vulnerability. I wasn't out to anyone, not even my closest friends. This was a world that existed only behind the locked door of my apartment, where I could explore myself without judgment. My relationship with Emma was the other complicated part of my life. She was stunning, smart, and charming, everything I had ever wanted in a partner. Our connection was intense, playful, and occasionally mischievous. Emma had a way of reading me without words, always sensing when something was off. Yet, I had never told her about my secret. I wasn't sure if she would understand, or if she would even want to. The thought of her discovering my crossdressing had always sent shivers down my spine. And yet, it was one of the things that made my life feel alive in ways nothing else could. That Thursday started like any other. I came home from work, exhausted but relieved it was finally the weekend. My apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional traffic passing outside my window. I tossed my laptop bag onto the sofa and kicked off my sneakers, feeling the comfort of being alone. Alone. The word carried a sense of freedom and danger all at once. Alone meant I could indulge in my secret, explore the side of me that the world didn't see. I headed to my bedroom, the small sanctuary where all my crossdressing outfits were hidden neatly in the closet. Dresses of every style and color hung side by side, along with shoes that clicked against the floor when I slipped them on. Makeup brushes were lined up on the dresser, each with its own purpose, and mirrors reflected the potential of a new persona waiting to emerge. I could feel my heart race in anticipation. I always got a thrill from the transformation, from the meticulous process of becoming someone else. As I picked out a sleek, midnight blue dress, I couldn't help but think about Emma. What would she think if she ever saw me like this? The thought both terrified and excited me. I had never intended for anyone else to know, yet the secret itself had become an addiction. Putting on the dress, smoothing it over my skin, I felt my pulse quicken. There was something almost magical about watching myself change in the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't exactly Alex, but it wasn't entirely someone else either. It was a version of me that I kept hidden from the world, a side I didn't dare show. The process of transformation was always the same, yet never lost its intensity. I carefully applied foundation, eyeshadow, and eyeliner, each stroke making my face look softer, more feminine. Lips painted a delicate pink, I brushed my hair into gentle waves, feeling an unfamiliar confidence radiate through me. My heart thumped faster as I slipped on a pair of black heels, balancing precariously, yet feeling invincible. Standing in front of the mirror, I took a deep breath and allowed myself a moment of indulgence. The reflection was intoxicating, vulnerable, yet powerful in a way I had never experienced as Alex. But freedom always carried a price. As I admired my reflection, a sudden thought crashed into me. Emma could come home at any moment. My secret was safe for now, but the risk of being caught added a delicious edge to the experience. It wasn't just about looking beautiful or feeling feminine. It was about the thrill of hiding, the tension of potentially being discovered. That tension had always been the most addictive part of crossdressing, and that night, it felt sharper than ever. The clock ticked slowly, each minute stretching the anticipation. I could hear the distant sounds of the city outside, the faint echo of footsteps from neighbors returning home. Alone in the apartment, I felt a heady mix of fear and exhilaration. There was a moral tightrope I walked every time I indulged in my secret, the shame, the secrecy, and the sheer excitement of exploring this hidden part of myself. And then, As I twirled slightly in the mirror, feeling the dress sway around my legs, I heard the faintest sound behind me, a click, almost imperceptible, but enough to make my heart stop. My mind raced. Could it be Emma? No, she shouldn't be home for another hour. Yet the sound lingered. The hairs on my arms stood up. My pulse pounded like a drum in my chest. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, the closet shadows deeper, and the reflection in the mirror more alive than ever. I froze, torn between the thrill of being caught and the terror of exposure. Every instinct screamed at me to change back, hide, vanish, but a part of me, the part that always craved this experience, whispered to stay. To live in the moment, to embrace the risk, to let the reflection in the mirror consume me. That night, alone in my apartment, Alex wasn't just Alex anymore. I was teetering on the edge of something irreversible. Little did I know that Thursday evening was just the beginning. The secret I had cherished, the thrill I had clung to, was about to collide with reality in ways I never could have imagined. Emma's curiosity, my own desires, and a chain of events I couldn't foresee would push me further than I had ever gone. By the time the night ended, Alex would never be just Alex again, and the question of who I truly was would no longer be mine alone to decide. The apartment felt charged that night, as if the air itself knew something was about to happen. I, Alex, stood in front of the mirror, heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor, the dress hugging my body in ways that made me both exhilarated and nervous. The reflection staring back at me wasn't just a disguise. It was a doorway into a version of myself that existed only in secret. Every flicker of makeup, every carefully positioned curl, every tilt of my head pulled me further from the Alex everyone else knew and closer to someone unrecognizable, yet undeniably real. I had always loved this ritual. Crossdressing wasn't merely about appearances. It was about control, exploration, and freedom. Yet freedom always carried tension. Emma could walk in at any moment, and my carefully crafted world would crumble. That risk was intoxicating. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the straps of the dress, feeling the silky fabric against my skin. I ran a finger along the hem, sensing how my reflection's eyes followed me, and a shiver of vulnerability and anticipation ran down my spine. I started with my makeup. Foundation first, smoothing out imperfections, followed by eyeshadow that deepened the almond shape of my eyes. The brush hovered near my lashes, the subtle motion making me feel a strange mixture of precision and sensuality. Each layer of makeup transformed more than my face. It transformed my confidence. I could feel my posture shift, my spine straightening, my movements gaining a grace that I never displayed as Alex. And yet, beneath the thrill, a shadow of fear lingered. What if someone saw me? What if Emma came home now? The idea made my pulse spike and my hands shake, but I couldn't stop. The next step was my hair. I brushed it into soft waves, letting it cascade down my shoulders. The sensation of long hair brushing against my back was alien yet electrifying. I tugged gently at the strands, experimenting with styles, watching how the reflection in the mirror seemed to come alive, almost breathing with me. High heels came next. Sliding my feet into them, I felt an instant change in my balance, my gait, and my perception of myself. Every step was a lesson in poise and tension, and every misstep reminded me how precarious this hidden world could be. I caught myself smirking, but the moment was interrupted by the faintest creak from the apartment door. My heart jumped into my throat. Emma? No, she wasn't due back for another hour. I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear, but the sound faded. Just a neighbor? Or maybe the sound had come from my own apartment. The settling of walls, the whisper of the wind outside? The uncertainty only heightened my thrill, sending a rush of adrenaline through me. I moved to the closet, carefully selecting accessories. Earrings, bracelets, a delicate necklace. I wanted perfection. I wanted Alex to disappear completely. And yet, in choosing each piece, I felt a mixture of liberation and fear. Liberation because I could be someone else entirely, even if just for a few hours. Fear because the deeper I went, the harder it would be to come back. The heels clicked louder now as I paced slightly, testing my balance, feeling the intoxicating mixture of vulnerability and power that came with every swish of the dress. It wasn't just about looking feminine. It was about feeling it. The softness of the fabric against my skin, the subtle scent of perfume I rarely wore, the way the mirror reflected not just my face, but an entirely new persona. Every detail was a thrill. I laughed softly to myself, a sound that felt strange, high-pitched, and girlish. For a moment, I allowed myself to forget the rules, the boundaries, the consequences. Alex didn't exist here. Only her did. Yet even in this freedom, tension lurked. I couldn't shake the thought of Emma. Our relationship was strong, but I had never crossed this boundary with her. Would she understand? Would she laugh, judge, or, worst of all, be disgusted? The fear gnawed at me even as excitement coursed through my veins. I was addicted to this duality. The danger of being caught, the thrill of self-expression, the intoxicating allure of living in a secret world. Suddenly, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Running late, don't wait up. Relief and disappointment collided in my chest. Relief because I had more time alone. Disappointment because the potential of being caught had vanished, leaving only the quiet echo of my own heartbeat. I smiled, shaking my head, knowing how twisted it sounded. Alone, yet craving both freedom and risk. Alone, yet aching for validation, even if it was imaginary, from someone who didn't know this side of me. I decided to push further. Tonight wasn't just a dress and some makeup. Tonight, I wanted to explore completely. I changed into a different outfit, something bold, daring, a little provocative. The mirror reflected every curve differently now, every movement more deliberate. I practiced walking, twirling, sitting, and standing. I studied myself from every angle, noting how the shadows fell, how the fabric clung and flowed. Every adjustment, every glance, felt like a small victory, a secret triumph over the mundane constraints of everyday life. But the thrill was also a trap. I heard a knock, soft, tentative, at the door. My stomach dropped. Emma? No, that wasn't possible. Yet my heart pounded like a drum. I froze in place, clutching the hem of my dress, every sense alert. The knock repeated, louder this time. Panic and excitement surged together. Should I hide? Should I answer? Every instinct screamed one thing, yet another part of me, the part addicted to risk, urged me to stay, to face the tension head-on. I tiptoed to the door, peering through the peephole. No one was there, just the empty hallway, dimly lit, silent. I exhaled, trying to calm the rapid thumping in my chest. But the fear lingered. It reminded me how fragile this world was, the careful balance between secrecy and exposure. The slightest misstep could unravel everything. And yet, the mirror in the bedroom called me back, its reflection more alluring than ever. I returned to it, adjusting the wig slightly, smoothing a wrinkle in the dress, feeling the intoxicating power of my hidden persona once more. I decided to push boundaries further, exploring a look I had never dared before. Darker makeup, more daring accessories, bolder shoes. I walked around the apartment, testing my confidence, my balance, and my nerve. Every step brought new sensations, new thrills, new fears. What if Emma walked in now? What if the world outside suddenly noticed? Every heartbeat echoed the duality of excitement and terror. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time seemed distorted in this private world. I laughed, twirled, sat, and paced, lost in the exploration of identity, secrecy, and desire. And then, as I caught my reflection one last time, I realized the thrill was no longer just in the transformation. It was in the suspense, the sense that the outside world could intrude at any moment, that my secret life was as fragile as it was intoxicating. Little did I know, the events of that night would push me further than I had ever imagined. Every choice, every movement, every stolen glance in the mirror was leading me toward a turning point, one that would force me to confront not just Emma, but the very essence of who I was. And in that moment, Standing in heels, silk, and makeup, I understood that my life was about to change forever. The apartment felt smaller now, almost suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. I, Alex, stood frozen in the center of the living room, the dress clinging to my body, heels clicking nervously on the floor. The thrill of transformation had been replaced with something sharper: fear. The thrill of secrecy had taken on a dangerous edge. Each heartbeat seemed amplified, echoing in my ears as if warning me that the carefully maintained balance of my life was about to shatter. It started subtly. A creak in the hallway, a shadow moving across the frosted glass of the door, small disturbances that immediately triggered my anxiety. Emma wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. Yet every sound, every flicker of light, made my pulse quicken. I realized that this was the risk I had been chasing all night, the tension that made cross-dressing both exhilarating and terrifying. Suddenly, a sharp knock echoed through the apartment. Not tentative this time, insistent. My heart skipped a beat. This was no accidental disturbance. The fear tightened its grip around me. I glanced toward the door, my mind racing with possibilities. Emma? No, she had promised she'd be late. But what if she had changed plans? What if it was someone else? The fear of discovery twisted in my stomach, mixing with the adrenaline that had been building for hours. I made a snap decision to hide. My reflection in the mirror looked back at me, a stark reminder of my dual life. Every moment spent in this persona was a gamble. I darted to my bedroom, slipping behind the partially open closet door, the soft fabric of the dress brushing against my skin as I crouched low. The knock continued, a slow, deliberate rhythm that seemed to mock me. My breath came in shallow bursts. Alex? Are you here? A voice called from the hallway. My blood ran cold. It wasn't Emma. Her voice had a softer, lighter tone. But it was unmistakably familiar. I froze, straining to recognize the inflection. My mind raced. Who could it be? A neighbor? A delivery person? Or someone who had discovered the secret I had guarded so carefully? Panic surged. I could feel my pulse in my temples as I scanned the room for an escape. My heels clicked against the floor as I tiptoed toward the window, but the thought of jumping out was ludicrous. My body trembled with fear and anticipation, the same cocktail of emotions that had drawn me to this secret life in the first place. Yet now, the thrill had transformed into something far more pressing: survival. The doorknob rattled. Whoever was outside was determined. My mind flashed through scenarios, each one worse than the last. I could hide and risk being found. I could confront them and risk immediate exposure. Or I could try to flee, but my movements in heels were slow, awkward, and vulnerable. The reflection in the mirror, the persona I had spent hours creating, suddenly felt like a trap. Every inch of the glamorous, confident figure was under threat. Then the door opened. A shadow fell across the hallway, creeping into the apartment. I squeezed my eyes shut, my breath caught in my throat. And then, a familiar laugh, a sound that made my knees weak, filled the space.
Emma.
She had returned early. My heart sank, a crushing weight pressing down on me. She paused, seemingly oblivious to the chaos unfolding in the room, but my mind screamed. She could see me any second. I peeked through the closet door. Emma stood in the doorway, holding a bag of groceries, her eyes scanning the room casually. But there was a glint of curiosity in her gaze. Something was different. She noticed the subtle displacement of the furniture, the faint hint of scent, or perhaps the lingering presence of my hidden self. My chest tightened. Could she suspect? Could she already know? I had to make a choice. Stay hidden, or reveal myself. The decision seemed impossible. But before I could act, my foot caught on the hem of the dress. I stumbled, heels slipping against the hardwood. The movement drew her attention. Emma's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. My heart raced as I straightened, trying to appear casual, but the dress swayed in a way that betrayed me. "Alex," she asked, her voice calm but carrying an edge of curiosity. I froze, unable to respond. The room felt charged with unspoken tension. My secret, my hidden persona, teetered on the edge of discovery. The reflection in the mirror seemed to taunt me, showing me both who I was and who I could become if the secret was revealed. Emma stepped closer, the bag of groceries forgotten on the counter. "You've been experimenting," she said finally, a half-smile playing on her lips. Relief and terror collided in my chest. She knew, or at least she suspected. My mind raced, searching for words, explanations, apologies, but none came. I was trapped, caught in the delicate balance between confession and concealment. Then came the twist I hadn't anticipated. A loud knock from the front door, a second visitor, insistent and demanding attention. Emma turned toward it, curiosity mingling with caution. I realized, in that moment, that my dual life was no longer contained. It was about to collide with reality, in ways I could not control. The sound of footsteps approaching the door sent a new wave of adrenaline surging through me. Panic gripped me. I considered running, hiding, anything to protect the secret I had nurtured for years. But every option carried risk. The reflection in the mirror caught my eye again, and I realized that tonight, the persona I had created was more than a costume. It was a part of me. And yet, revealing it meant exposing vulnerability, facing judgment, and confronting the unknown. Emma's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Alex, it's okay. I think I understand." My chest tightened. Did she truly understand, or was she masking judgment? I stepped forward, every movement deliberate, conscious of the delicate balance of fabric and heels. The second knock grew louder, more impatient. Whoever was outside was about to force the issue, and I had no choice but to confront it. I moved toward the door, Emma at my side, and swung it open. The visitor's face was familiar yet threatening, eyes sharp and calculating. My stomach churned. The carefully maintained balance of secrecy and exploration was collapsing. Every instinct screamed to retreat, yet the persona in the mirror, the version of me I had spent hours perfecting, urged me to stand tall, to face the challenge, to embrace both fear and excitement. The visitor stepped inside, glancing around the apartment with an unreadable expression. Emma's hand found mine, grounding me, and I realized something vital. The thrill, the fear, the excitement, all of it was meaningless without someone who could see, understand, or challenge me. And in that moment, I understood that my life, my secret, and my identity were on the brink of transformation, not just in appearance, but in reality. A sudden noise, a drop of a heel, a slip of the wig, shattered the fragile calm. All eyes turned toward me. My heart pounded like a drum in my ears. The reflection in the mirror seemed almost alive, showing me the duality of my existence in stark contrast. Alex was still there, but so was her, the confident, beautiful, vulnerable persona I had created in secret. And now, with the world pressing in, both had to survive the night. Everything had led to this moment. The thrill, the fear, the anticipation, the countless hours of preparation. And now, the apartment felt like a stage, the world waiting to judge, understand, or reject me. My breath caught. Every step, every glance, every subtle movement carried stakes higher than I had ever imagined. And in that charged atmosphere, I realized that tonight, Alex and her were no longer separate. They were one, unified in suspense, fear, and exhilaration, ready to face whatever came next. The apartment was tense, almost vibrating with anticipation. Alex, stood frozen, heels planted firmly on the floor, the dress clinging to me like a second skin. Emma's hand was still on mine, grounding me, while the visitor from the hallway remained in the doorway, expression unreadable, eyes sharp. Every instinct screamed at me that the fragile world I had constructed, the secret life I had cherished, was now on the verge of exposure. Time seemed to stretch unnaturally. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, each thump a reminder that I had never been in a situation like this before. The reflection in the mirror behind me caught my eye, showing two versions of myself. Alex, ordinary and cautious, and her, glamorous, vulnerable, and defiant. Both stared back, and I realized that tonight, both had to survive the scrutiny of reality. Emma's gaze flicked between me and the visitor, and for a moment, her expression was inscrutable. Relief? Curiosity? Understanding? I couldn't tell. She squeezed my hand slightly, a silent gesture of support, yet the tension in her shoulders mirrored my own anxiety. I wanted to speak, to explain, to confess everything, but the words stuck in my throat, tangled in fear and excitement. The visitor took a deliberate step forward. Their eyes scanned the apartment, landing on the scattered items of my secret life. The heels, the makeup, the carefully chosen outfit. Every item felt like evidence, proof of a world I had hidden for years. My stomach twisted. What would they think? Would they judge me? Or worse, would they expose me? The thought made me shrink slightly, my heels clicking softly as I shifted weight nervously. Emma spoke first, her voice calm but carrying authority. I think it's time you know the truth about Alex, or rather, her. She smiled faintly, a mixture of mischief and reassurance. My heart skipped a beat. Did she already know everything? Was she orchestrating this moment to force me into a revelation? Before I could process her words, the visitor moved closer, stepping over the threshold. A sudden breeze from the open window caught my hair, lifting the wig slightly at the back. Panic surged as I reached to adjust it, but the visitor's gaze caught the movement. The reflection in the mirror seemed to tremble along with me, the duality of identity suddenly so vivid it was almost painful to watch. I don't know what to say, I stammered, voice shaking. I wanted to retreat, vanish into the closet, but the presence of both Emma and the visitor held me rooted in place. Every muscle in my body tensed, aware that a single misstep could unravel everything. Then the visitor spoke. Their tone was calm but deliberate, each word slicing through the tension like a blade. I've been looking for someone like you, someone brave enough to live between worlds. But the question is, can you handle it when reality comes knocking? The weight of those words hit me like a tidal wave. Brave? Reality? The thrill, the fear, the exhilaration I had felt all night now collided with the pressing truth that my secret life was no longer mine alone to control. Every heartbeat echoed in my ears as I realized the danger and opportunity intertwined. I had spent years hiding, experimenting, and exploring, but now, the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. Emma's gaze softened slightly, but the visitor's eyes remained fixed, calculating. I felt exposed, raw, vulnerable, and yet a flicker of defiance sparked within me. I straightened my back, adjusted the wig, and lifted my chin. This was more than just a secret hobby or a personal indulgence. This was a part of me, a side that demanded recognition, respect, and survival. Then a sudden noise, the faint click of the front door locking from outside, made my heart leap into my throat. The visitor turned slightly, listening, then glanced at Emma. Something unspoken passed between them, a silent acknowledgement that whatever happened next would change everything. The apartment felt impossibly small, the air thick with suspense. I glanced at the mirror one last time. The reflection stared back with unflinching honesty. Two sides, one truth. My hands shook slightly as I realized that whatever choice I made in the next moments would define not just my secret life, but my identity, my relationship with Emma, and the fragile boundary between my private and public selves. And then it happened, a sudden knock at the door. Louder, more insistent than before. My pulse raced. Another visitor? Or had someone finally discovered the secret I had fought to protect? I froze, torn between revealing myself fully, hiding once more, or trying to escape the tension that threatened to consume me. Emma's eyes met mine, and for the first time, there was no mischief, no teasing, just calm, expectant understanding. She didn't speak, but the message was clear. Whatever happened next, I couldn't hide anymore. The visitor in the doorway stepped forward, their shadows stretching across the room, and the apartment seemed to shrink around us all. The reflection in the mirror caught the moment perfectly. My two selves, poised on the edge of exposure, fear, and transformation. I could feel my pulse in every fingertip, my breath catching, my heels teetering on the floor. The suspense was unbearable, electric, and exhilarating all at once. And then the scene froze in my mind, time suspended. Would I be caught? Would Emma accept this side of me? Would the visitor become an ally or a threat? The apartment, the reflection, the tension, all held their breath alongside me. I took a step forward, unsure if it was courage or desperation driving me. And in that suspended moment, the story ended, leaving everything unresolved, every possibility hanging by a thread, every secret at the mercy of the next moment.